Hello. Great afternoon, great evening, wherever you're joining from. If you're watching the rebroadcast, thank you so much for joining us for another episode of the Serenity Resource Connector. We are at episode 9, and today we'll be looking at registration of business name or companies. Should you be registering a business name or a company? That's a conversation we're going to have today. But before our guests from the Companies Office of Jamaica joins us, just to remind you that last week we had a conversation with representatives from the Municipal Corporation and the Ministry of Health about business license and the which ones you need, the process involved in getting your business license for those who need to get a health certificate to before you actually get to registering your business. Because I learned last week, I love to share what I learned, that there are some persons who believe that once they get that license from the municipal corporation through the health department, that means that their business is registered. All right, so today we are going to bring in the Companies Office into the discussion so you can understand the difference between getting your business license and getting your business registered and how you're going to go about doing that. And we're going to be answering a whole lot of other questions. So let me bring on now Yolande Rowe-Fender from the Companies Office of Jamaica, where companies are registered, or is it businesses are registered?
Oh, companies and the businesses are registered.
All right, because people just say we're starting a business, right?
Mhm.
But there are some persons who want to go large and they want to get established and they want to register a company. But of course, there are differences between the two. The process involved and all of that. So we want to have that conversation today. Welcome, Yolande, to the Serenity Resource Connector.
Thank you for having me.
Really great to have you joining us so we can provide some, I call it virtual hand-holding for those who are looking to start a business.
Mhm.
So we started 2 weeks ago by having a conversation with the Jamaica Business Development Corporation on what are the things that you need to consider before you get to starting a business. And we talked last week about some of the licenses that are involved that you need before you get to register in your business. We're getting a feedback. Thank you for those who are joining us live. I can see you're connected. I see the love going up. Thank you so much for connecting weekly to engage in these conversations so that you can be empowered to go out there and be responsible citizens. So, Yolande, are you ready to start telling us about who needs to register a business?
Yes. Okay. Should I go start?
Go right ahead. Who needs
Okay,
to
all
register
right.
a business? And why do I really need to register my business?
Well, first of all, you need to register so that you can be a legally operating entity. Who needs to register? Anyone that is offering a service in a name other than their given name, that they need to register that. So if John Brown Plumbing Services, that needs to be registered because that is not the name of the person. If you're trading, you have to register. There is no if and but or maybe about that one. Once you're trading, you have to find a name and you have to register either a business or a company. There's no escaping it. So I know that people have been telling people that, oh, you can trade in your own name. Once you're operating from an established place of business, you have to find a name and register that name. You either register a business name or you register a company.
All right, let's break it down because some persons, when they hear trading, they think of the big conglomerates.
Oh no.
So when you talk about trading, are you talking about the corner shop,
The
Miss
corner
Brown's
shop.
corner shop?
Yes, the corner shop. Once you're selling something, once you
Okay,
have something, something, something. A restaurant is selling food, because that's what you're doing when you have a restaurant. You're selling food. You have a bar, you're selling alcohol or other beverages. So the bar, the restaurant, the corner shop, the liquor
right.
haberdashery, the hardware store. Once you are trading, meaning giving a good in exchange for
In
money.
exchange for money.
Right.
Okay, all right. So I was asked to do a presentation some time ago, and I believe the heading was about promoting and registering a business. And I remember I told them that it's the other way around. It's you register and then you promote.
Right.
Talk to
Because
us
you run
about
the risk. Yeah,
talk to
because
us
you
about
run the
that.
risk of you start promoting, you're doing your shirts, and then when you come to the Companies Office of Jamaica to register the name, that business that you have now earned goodwill on, you can't register the name because the name is either the same as another that is registered or it is too close. And once you're trying to register a name that is the same or it is too close to another name, that name is going to be refused.
Right.
So the
And yeah,
first step, you plan your business and then register it before you even start doing any promotional activities.
right. Because I've had at least one client that, and he was into basically trading, went
Mhm.
in investing in bottling and labeling and all of that, only to realize that the name was already taken. So all of those monies would have been wasted because
Mhm.
now we had to do a new name, and now you
Mhm.
have to re-establish yourself in the market because
Mhm.
now you're going out with a completely different set of labels. So those are some of the pitfalls if when you go in before you actually get to registering.
I
But
remember a lady
those,
in
yes,
I remember a lady in I think in Trelawney. She had been operating in 2012. We went on a mobile. She had been operating for 20 odd years before that. And when she came to register the business name, I had to tell her that, sorry, ma'am, that name can't be used. She was most distraught.
yes, because of course everyone would know the business by that name
Right.
already. Now to start to be telling persons, oh, we're no longer going by that name, we're going
Mm-hmm.
by this
This
name.
name. And
It's really
not only that, in our society, we have a thing named bad mind. Somebody see that you're operating and you're getting business, and they come in and they check and they say, oh, that name not registered. So they would come in and then register it before you. So you have no standing.
and claim that name, right?
Yes.
And yes, and it goes, it's just because it's we are so virtual now, and there are a number, especially the younger people who are
Yes.
promoting their business, and I see some really awesome logos and names
Mm-hmm.
out there, and only to realize that the name has not been registered. But once
Right.
you put it out there and persons see that you're getting traction and all of that, they can just claim it and to
Mhm.
name it, and
Yes.
that's it. And there's nothing really that you can do because you really ought not to be promoting before you
Right.
register. So
Right.
there's
Because yeah,
no
because there's
legal.
also a fine for that. There's a fine if you're trading and not registered. There's a fine of 20 if you're advertising and not registered. There's a fine of $20,000. And people fail to realize they may think that advertising is, putting up a billboard or having an ad on the TV or the radio. No, a simple business card or the branded shirts or a little name and your little bottles and all your caps and your mask. That's advertising.
Oh yes. And when we have the conversation with the tax authority, they'll understand that you can actually recoup those costs. So that is
Right.
why it's best to go that route where you register and make sure that you secure your name. And there are different stages along the journey in terms of all of that. But the big question, I'm setting up this operation and I'm wondering, should I register a business name? What really is a business name? The difference between business name and a company.
Okay,
Except,
so
except that company sounds very
oh yes, it does. You
formal.
know, but it's a registration that is just an individual or partners. So it's a sole proprietorship or a partnership. Persons trading as. So there is no protection when you do a business name registration. What it is just um, a name. You're just registering a name. Now, with the limited liability company, you have a company with the word limited attached to it. You have protection from, sorry about that, protection from first, personal protection. So with a business name, there's no personal protection. So somebody decides to sue you, your assets, personal assets are at risk with a business name. With a company, that is not so. Your assets are protected because it's limited to the liability, to the unpaid shares in the company. And
right,
also, you have perpetual succession, meaning that when you die, as a with a company, as a shareholder of a company, the company can go on without you with a business name. That's it. When you pass away, the business goes away with you. And if it's a partnership, if it's two persons, the partnership will come to an end when one partner has died. So you are able to have, as I said, the protection. All for the company, the
uh-huh,
assets of the company are not owned by any individual. They're It's owned by the company. So the company vehicle, the vehicle that is in the company's name is not yours. It belongs to the company. And and that's one of the things. And so
right,
also the members, the shareholders, are not agents of the company. So even though you have shares in the company, you can't just get up and just go out and do business contract on behalf of the company. That has to be done by the directors or persons who are employed to
right,
to the company. To the company. For a business name, any partner can go out and offer, can do a contract for the company. And basically
that's right.
that's
And then the risk, even though it's
yes.
any partner, whatever risk that partner takes on, because it's a partnership, then there's equal
Mm-hmm.
exposure.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that so? Right. So
Yes,
the terms
yes,
of the
yes.
protection, but of course, all of that protection comes with some level of accountability and responsibility. Tell us in terms of the difference in terms of registering the business as opposed to
Okay, so
the
with
company.
registering, the business name is just a 10 10-page document that you would need to complete. You complete the document, submit your find a suitable name, have your location already register, know where you're going to be operating from. You submit the form with your ID, TRN, proof of home address. And if it's a business that you're operating that you need a license to operate, so like for the hairdressers, the barbers, persons who are doing pest control, attorneys, pharmacies, anything that you need a license to operate, you need to
Right.
give us that license when you are registering the business. So you submit the license, you complete the document, and submit with your payment of $2,500 for a partnership or a sole proprietorship. Partnership up to five
Five
persons,
persons, right?
and or a sole proprietorship, and for a partnership of 6 to 20, it would be $5,000. So we
All right.
just submit the documents, and you're good
And
to
that
go.
can be done online.
And it can be done online, so you don't have to go into the Montego Bay office or the Kingston location. You can just do it from the beach, sitting on the beach, and you're sitting on the beach, and you just go on your phone and you do your registration, and you're good to go. For a company, though, you'd need to submit the BRF, that's the super form, and the articles of incorporation. That has to be completed and submitted. All directors and shareholders must sign the articles of incorporation. The same
Okay.
thing for the for the sole proprietorship or partnership. The form must be signed by all proprietors or partners. And the
Okay.
form is duly completed and signed and filled out and submitted. For the company, the document should be accompanied by ID and the TRN for the principal director as well as the declarant. And the declarant is just the person who's completing the form and advising us that the information contained herein is correct. And the cost for incorporation is $24,500. And then you're going to want copies of the article. So you just add a little $1,500 extra to that. Now, if when you come into us, you decide that the service for a company takes 5 days, for a business name, it takes 3 days. Now, if somebody decides that, hey, that's too long, but we're here for you. You can do same day service for a business name, it's an additional $3,000. For a
Okay.
company, it's an additional $6,000. But you have to visit the office before 9 o'clock to get that service. Next day service is also available. $1,500 extra for a partnership or a super partnership, and $3,000 extra for a company. And you get it the following day.
Okay.
Yes,
That sounds very convenient,
of course.
right? So, the cost involved and all of that. But in terms of the company, though, because there are different kinds of companies,
Mhm.
for trading, and of course, you have some that are set up for based organization.
Yes, yes.
Regardless of the nature of the company that is established, what is the responsibility, or what are the responsibilities of the secretary or director? What kind of
The secretary, the officers, the secretary is required to ensure that documents are filed at the Companies Office of Jamaica. So the annual return is to be filed to the anniversary of incorporation or the anniversary of the last one, because not everybody used the anniversary date as their filing date. So the secretary is to ensure, and then
right?
also filed with other statutory bodies, and also to file to ensure that records are kept, and the directors are to ensure that how the directors are responsible for the running of the company, and also to ensure that the secretary files the documents. And they're also required to file the annual return when it's due. If the address has changed for the company, to file that form 17. If the secretary has changed, to file the form 20. To file the form 23 when directors are changed. So it's not just about starting a company and then just sitting down. No, we have responsibilities thereafter that you have to
Right.
ensure that, yes, because you have to ensure compliance. You don't want to know that you're going to the bank for a loan and they say, oh, you need to file your annual returns. Somebody called me yesterday inquiring about a company that is on the register, and they want a letter of good standing for the company. When I
Right.
checked, not one annual return has ever been filed for this
Wow.
company. So they owe us like $289,000. So in order
Wow.
to sell the property, and I'm guess they're selling the property to get some money. So
That's
in order to
it.
sell the property, they will
They
have to
have
pay the
to
two
pay
hundred
out.
and odd $1,000 to bring the company up to date. Some persons want to get a loan, they go to the bank, they need a letter of good standing, only to come and find out that hey, they haven't been filing the returns. And then also when you file the returns, you have to ensure that they were approved, because sometimes errors can be made. Errors can be made. So persons, once they file, it is their responsibility to ensure that the documents have been approved, and not just file them and leave it.
So, if it is that they have filed and have not gotten a response from the companies? Is there a response to say that your documents have been accepted and approved? What's the process like? How will they know?
Well, if your email address is on the document, you get and once the document has been approved, you get an email to say that document has been approved. If it's rejected, you also get an email to say that it's been rejected. The company's office
Okay.
will also attempt to make a call to advise you that, hey, your document has been rejected. Sometimes, some people say calls coming in from numbers that they don't know,
They don't want
and
to
so they
answer.
don't answer it and they don't return the call. So they never get that advisory. So it's always good. They can always check with the company's
Right.
office to see if the document has been approved. And the documents are usually approved within 5 working days.
Okay. And that goes down to our customer service etiquette across the board, because if it is that we're operating a business
Mhm.
and we're giving out our number, if it is that we're not able to respond at the same time, it's always best to return the call. Always best to return the call so you can find out, because that's you're operating a business and you can be
Oh,
missing out on big
uh-huh. Yeah.
opportunities.
Some persons they don't answer numbers that they don't know, and I don't understand. You're operating a business. Sometimes you just give somebody just fill out a form in front of you, put a number on it. They turn
Right.
and leave, and by the time you're calling them, you're not getting any response.
And if I find that is similar with a number of the agencies that have been on so far. In terms, I remember Hart mentioning that
Mhm.
as well. But that's something that we have to be mindful of, especially our younger people. Please bear this in mind, because this is how you miss opportunities. Because if
Yes,
you are
yes,
not
yes.
answering the call, or if you change your number for whatever reason, you
Mm,
must update the relevant organization
right.
that you're doing business with, because that's the
Mhm.
only way they can actually follow through on what it is that you have engaged them on.
Mhm.
Right? So that's something that we have to be mindful of. Of course, there's a legal age to do business.
Right.
What's the
That's
legal age?
18.
That's
18. So while 18, if you're younger than 18, you can be a director or a shareholder in a company. If I think if you're below 12, then a parent would have to sign on your behalf, and then
okay.
they would have to provide a birth certificate, because ordinary relation cannot come and sign to say that
Okay.
they're signing on behalf of. So if you're going to be signing on behalf of that, that person would have to be your child. Now for a
Oh,
business name, totally 18 years. So you can't register unless until you're 18.
which is understandable because it's the
Right.
individual that is doing business as.
Right. So
So,
all liability rests with that, with the proprietor, with the business owner,
yes,
and they're not at an age to contract.
that's right. Because we know we have 10-year-old, 9-year-olds who are starting businesses
Which is
now.
right, right.
So for them to get that formalized, they'd have to set up a company,
They
so
could,
that,
right.
right, because a company is a separate legal entity,
That is correct.
right? So they're basically building their legacy.
Mm-hmm.
They just need to get proper guidance so that they can have the right directors to take care of the day to day and make sure that all those returns are filed so they don't rack up those penalties,
Mm-hmm.
and that they can continue doing business smoothly.
Right.
Right. So,
Okay. I spoke about the liability of the director, but the business proprietor also has a liability. The certificate that you get once you're registered
yes.
expires in 3 years. So you're required to come in and renew once the business is still operational. Come in and renew. You can do it 14 days before the certificate expires or anytime thereafter. And if the business is not in operation, you're required to close. If you have made any changes, if you have changed your address for the business, address of your home address, the nature of the business, any changes that have been made, they should also be recorded with the Companies Office, and the requisite change fee of 2,500 paid if a change is done, and for the closure, $600 would be paid for
Right.
the closure of the business name
Right.
and
Because
to
it's
or to
much
be brought
easier
up
to
to date.
close a business than a company.
Right. Because a
Right.
company, well, right now we have the amnesty going on for company removal amnesty, that you're just required to do a letter, sign a letter, submit a letter requesting removal, and a statutory declaration signed by a justice of the peace, pay $7,500, and have the company removed. That expires November 30th. So persons who have companies that, not no longer in operation, they can take advantage of the amnesty. Outside of that, you'd have to get to bring the company up to date, get this a letter requesting removal, a letter from a chartered accountant stating that the company has no assets or liabilities. So right now is the easiest that it will ever be to
Right.
remove that
But,
company.
but once that company is removed, it is if it is that they wish to reuse that name, how long will they have to wait to reuse?
Well, the name is protected for 20 years. So once a company is removed,
Yes.
unless you're going to restore it, that name is gone. For a business name, once the business is closed, it's available for use
By anyone.
by anyone.
By anyone because the
But for a,
protection is
yes,
removed. Okay.
yes,
Right.
but for the company, the name is protected for 20 years because you can restore the company within 20 years. After 20 years, you can't restore it.
Okay. Wow. So that's the we want to make that clear, because for those persons who want to take advantage of the amnesty, they want to understand that they'd have to start a different company if it is that they want to continue in business.
Or they can restore it and pay all the outstanding money.
They don't
We're
have the
not going
money
to
to
say
pay
no.
your land, remember?
Oh,
So
oh,
that is why they're taking advantage of the amnesty, right?
oh. Well, so if they're going to do a business name, they can't use the same name, unfortunately.
Or tell us about that in terms of the you mean for those who are
If they have a
closing a
company, and
company,
yes, they'd have to choose a different name because they
a different
couldn't use the same name, right?
okay, because of the protection that you mentioned. I
Right,
just want to
right.
make sure we get that clear. Um, as it relates to the nature of the business,
Hmm.
what I've seen is situation where the individual comes in, register the business, indicate a nature, but that nature does not capture all that the business is supposed to be doing. How do we guide persons as it relates to that?
They can come in and do a name change for. I'm sorry, that's a name change,
They-
a nature change, for the business. But the business, if it see where is that, I mean, sometimes the farms cannot facilitate all the nature that they want because sometimes some people just need to do a company. I've seen where, sometimes just a company that they need to do that can cover everything
all
that
the
they want to
areas.
do. Right. And for some, they can also do a branch, register a branch, because sometimes it's a totally different thing that they're doing. And then
Okay.
sometimes some people like would register one business and they want to do something else and they just come and add it on when really and truly what they would have it would have been better if they had registered a branch of that business. And also when you register, if you're incorporate a company, you can have many different locations without coming in to us to do anything else. But for a business name, once you're registered for a particular location,
Right.
so once you start to establish another location, you have to come in and register that location also. So if you're operating a restaurant in Maypen and you want to open
Right.
another one in um Lionel Town,
Super time.
you have to
Yeah.
come
Okay.
in and do a branch registration for the other location that you have. And a branch doesn't have to be the same thing, doesn't have to be doing the same thing, doesn't have to have the same name, doesn't have to be at the same location. The only the what you have in common, the commonality, is you, the business owner.
So I can have, because it's me, the individual, so doing business as Serenity Advisory Consulting Services and providing services of that nature
Mm-hmm.
on the side. So I can just register a branch. So that branch would have a unique name in terms of,
Right,
instead of Serenity Advisory Consulting, I could use Serenity Resource Connector as a branch.
right, right.
Oh,
Or if you want to do
okay.
Serenity landscaping or Serenity
Something totally
outsourcing,
different
right?
from
Serenity
what.
outsourcing, you want to do a call center. You have many options.
All right, and it's the same 2,500 to register the branch.
Right. So it's a change. So whether you're doing a branch, you're changing your name, you're changing the nature. And once you've done a business name registered, you can change the name, the nature, and the address. But if you're changing all three, it's a totally different business. So you'd have to close that one and do a new registration. But you're free to make changes. So you can move from the address 10 times. You can add many natures. You
Okay,
can, yes, change
right.
your name, but once you're changing, you can add branches, change the name, change the nature, change your name, get married, divorce, married, change, yes,
We're not
whatever
recommending
changes.
that.
Not at all, but things happen.
Right. All right. So as it relates to the change, the important that we must reiterate, once you change your address, telephone number, your name, anything of that nature, it's important that you update all your records. So if it is that you operate in a business, you need to contact the company's office to do the changes, contact your bank, where
Mm-hmm,
everywhere else that you need to. That's something that we have to develop a
mm-hmm,
system. Once we do changes of that nature, you have your checklist. You need to update
yes.
your bank account to make sure
Mm-hmm,
that the information on the bank account is up to date, because you don't want when emergency comes and you go to the bank and there's a
mm-hmm,
rush and you cannot get access to your funds because you did not do the update at the
mm-hmm,
time. The same thing for insurance and everything.
mm-hmm,
Have to
mm-hmm,
make sure that you develop a system where you get all of that done. Right.
mm-hmm.
So we covered in terms of the business name as opposed to a company. And we learned that if they taught this in any of my studies before, I totally missed it in terms of the what we call a minor
Mm-hmm.
actually being a director on a company. That is
Mm-hmm.
great information to know. So parents, guardians, I had this question as recent as last week about for those minors who wants to start a business. So there's no restriction to starting a business except that
Mm-hmm.
it will be registered as a company, and that's how your child, your guard can start building their legacy. Just
Yeah,
ensure that you provide them with the right guidance. And some of these things require legal advice
yeah,
to
that is
get you
correct.
on the right footing. So be mindful of that. All right. So there are some things that I can advise you on business wise, but there are some other areas that's definitely legal advice. All right. So be mindful of that. Ooh. Oh, your background just changed to fancy color just now.
No, the sensor lights.
Okay.
And so I have not moved for a while, and so
Okay. It was a nice little mix to the flow. Right. You mentioned earlier in terms of the renewal, the 3 years.
Mhm.
Is there any notification that's currently sent, or we just have to set that reminder to
You have the
remember?
certificate. The certificate is
We're
there.
not, we're not checking the certificate all the time, Yolande. And it's 3 years.
Yes, so we
So that's
try,
something
but
that's
with 100 and odd businesses on the register, it's difficult. We try, but we
all
don't
right.
always
So
get to everybody.
it seemed that the company's office need to take advantage of that digitization facility that's ongoing now so we can help to serve our populace.
It's free? Did you
They
say it
grant,
is free?
yes, but I don't think the company's office can benefit from it. So we are going to have to
Oh,
look at some other facility to
oh yes.
ensure that I'm sure it can be done because we're seeing
Yes,
it happening
yes,
in so
yes.
many other government entities and we want to make it
Yes, yes.
easier. We have come a far way in terms of business registration, company registration, but of course, we still want to see more being
Yes.
done,
Because now you
greater
can register
efficiency.
online. 10 years ago, you
Exactly.
couldn't do that.
Yes. Except I have a challenge with not being able to renew online. It's
We're
supposed to be.
working on it.
All right. I hope that will be pretty soon. So as we talk about the
It's in the
renewal,
pipeline.
oh Lord, that pipeline, I don't love to hear about the pipeline at all. And I'm sure the viewers don't like that part at all. We love specific timelines. But in
That's
terms of the
that's above
renewal
my pay
process,
grade.
just let us know what exactly is required for renewal.
Okay, as I said, 2 weeks, 14 days before the certificate expires, you can renew it. For a partnership, it's a BN2. For a sole proprietorship, it's a BN1. And for a company that has registered a business name, it's a BN3. Because companies can register businesses also. They can also register trading as.
Okay, so a lot of different options
Mm-hmm,
there, right? It's just how you use them, and in terms of the reporting and the records aspect of it. So all this conversation we're having here, we're going to have the conversation from the tax administration side come next week so we can see the transition because after you register with the company's office it doesn't just stop there. There are other
mm-hmm,
things similar to when you get your business license. That's not the end of it. You need to register
mm-hmm,
your business name or your company
mm-hmm.
if you're going to be doing business in a name other than your
Your given name.
registered. You mentioned earlier in terms of other than their name, Yolanda, you have to remember that there's some
Right.
right. So it's not your alias. If you're using your alias, that's another name other than that on the
Yes,
birth
it's your given
certificate.
name. It's a name on your birth
So
certificate.
right. So we have to establish that, right? And for the company, there's an annual return that is required to for you to
Mm-hmm,
remain compliant. So we went through in terms of
mm-hmm,
what to do in terms of the
mm-hmm.
changes, some of the changes that can be made, what can be done, and if it is that there's no limitation as to the different businesses that you can start, but you can
Right,
always register a new branch, and they just have to understand that whatever you do on the company's office side, you have to duplicate or replicate on the tax side, and we're going
right,
to have
right,
that conversation so you see the transition as to what exactly to do so that you're not compliant with the company's office but not with the tax office,
right. Yes,
right?
yes. And
Is there any
some persons file the tax, so they're up to date with the tax office. And then when you go to the when we, our
Gotcha.
field officers go to them and say to them that, hey, you have not been filing your annual return. Yeah, but yes, I've been filing my annual return. They are confusing because all the entities
That's
have
it.
they have an annual return in some form or other. So we just have to remember
That's
that
it.
company's office is not the tax office, and you have different annual returns to file.
Right. Which is one of the reasons why we're having the Serenity Resource Connector so persons can be guided as to which entity does what. Because I've noticed that over the years, you need to get some water. Yes. Noticed over the years, right, that there are some persons who register with the company's office, do not establish a relationship with the tax office, and the opposite is
Mhm,
true in terms of the reporting and the compliance side of things. So we want to make sure
mhm.
that they get that right. All right.
Right.
As it relates to, all right, so we're talking about business and the trading and all of that.
Mhm.
The community based organizations, we want to have
Okay.
that conversation as well.
Okay, so
Right, because a
for
number of those
incorporation,
organizations, right,
yeah, so for incorporation, they'd be using the same BRF form, but they'd be using the
right,
articles of incorporation, the form 1B. The company limited by shares, which is a regular company, uses a form 1A. The company limited by guarantee uses a form 1B. And for the same thing, directors and members would subscribe, the members would have to also sign the form, submit the ID for the principal director and the
right,
declarant in order to submit them. And just the same as the company has the same obligations to file the annual return, the company limited by guarantee without a share capital also has an obligation to file an annual return, but they also have a further obligation to file an income and expenditure statement. So, to see how the
right,
donations are being and the money earned are being spent. So just a little extra that
right.
they also need we also need to know. And but it doesn't have to be detailed. Sometimes you get some people put in every cent. We just want to know the income and the expenditure. I mean, and it doesn't have to be audited. So for the
Okay,
non-profit entity, it doesn't have to be audited at all. Just have a statement of your
right,
income and your expenditure for the period. So it's for each year, 1 year period.
right. And that's for the
And then
company's
for
office
the company
because
for the
there's
company's
another
office. Right.
entity that we're going to have
Right.
conversations with later to
Mm-hmm.
right, because it's not just the company's office for the, and when we talk about community-based organizations, we're talking about your clubs,
Right.
the Chamber of Commerce, we're
Citizens
talking about
Association,
Business Association, name some
mhm,
others.
churches,
Okay,
foundations,
right,
ministries. Yeah, citizens,
yes,
parent teachers
Parent Teachers
association,
Association,
other bodies, CDC, we call them community
the
development
community development
committees.
committees,
Right,
right, and
right,
development area committees,
right. So,
for the
and this the cost for
different groups.
incorporation would be the same as a regular company because it is a company. So the obligations are the same.
Yes. So for those who are looking to set up foundations and things of that nature, organizations of that nature, there you have it in
And
terms
it can
of
also be done online.
requirements.
That incorporation can also be done online. They would just if they would just need to do if you're going to be on do the transaction online, the first step is to do a name reservation. You have to reserve the name first, and once the name has been approved, then you just move right into registering whether the business name or the company.
Okay. All right. We have a question here before we continue. Is the annual return only for the company or is it also for sole traders?
Only for companies. The sole trader just needs to renew every 3 years. That's it.
All right. Thank you for that question, Romeo. So the annual return is only for company and then the sole trader renews every year.
Right. No, the
Thank you so
annual
much for
return for the
joining,
company.
Romeo.
No, every 3 years, the sole trader renews.
Sole trader, right.
Every 3 years.
Awesome. Right. Okay. I also have viewers from the diaspora. What about those who are looking to establish companies here? What's required? How can they get that done?
The same requirement. But they're in the best ever opportunity now that they can do it online. They don't need to get anybody to do it for them or to leave the country. They can simply do the same registration incorporation online. But for a business name registration, if you're not a Jamaican, you're not a member of your country is not a member of CARICOM, then you need a work permit for a business name, sole proprietorship. Once you're not a Jamaican or you're not a member of CARICOM, you need a work permit to register a business name. But there is no limit for the incorporation. It's just required for that at least one director must have a TRN.
Just one director.
Any no, sorry, any officer. So whether director or secretary must have a TRN. So it doesn't have to be the director, it can also be the secretary.
Right. And with the online option, it can be signed online, so they can just do that online without any back and forth.
Right.
However, a question earlier this week as it relates to an entity that's established in the United States or Canada, and they
Mhm.
want to register an office or branch here in Jamaica.
Okay, so they would need to, that can be facilitated. So they decide whether they're going to register a branch or they want to register a local entity, because some persons just register a local entity with the same name here. But the option is register the local entity or they register the overseas, a branch of the overseas company using the Form 31. Now, what we would need for them to complete the Form 31 and submit the documents that they got at incorporation certified by the body that registered or incorporated the entity. So different things for different jurisdictions, different places. I think like in the UK is Companies House. In the
Okay.
US it may be the Secretary of State. So whichever body that did the incorporation, that is the body that
Right.
we need the certified copies from. And they
Okay.
submit that along with the Form 31 and pay your $25,000 and you're good to go.
Okay.
And
So
they
they can
also have to have an agent here. So they have to name an agent here who will be doing
oh,
business on their behalf or and receiving service for them.
all right. So there you have it. So you're in the diaspora, you can still conduct your business here in Jamaica because we want to build Jamaica, grow Jamaica, so
Mm-hmm.
that we can make Jamaica a better place for all of us, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are lots of opportunities here, irrespective of all that's happening, a lot of opportunities. We just need to understand how the system works. And things
Mm-hmm.
are getting much easier in terms of doing business and with the ease of the online registration
Right.
and the
And the use of the
renewal
super
that's in the
form.
pipeline.
And the use of the super form, because with the super form, you get a TRN when you're doing a new
That's
incorporation.
it.
You get a
That's it.
TRN, you register with NIS, NHT, and the same thing. And with the new company, you get your letter, your TCC for a new company.
TCC for what 6 months?
3 or 3
It's
months.
valid
I
for
think it's 3 months. 3 months.
3 months.
Yeah, the first one that you get from us is 3 months.
It's three
Thereafter, you have
months.
to go
Okay,
to, yes, 3 months.
right. And that's
Thereafter, you go
for the
to,
company, right?
right, for the
Because
business
this,
name, no TCC,
yeah.
because, but you will still register. They get a TRN,
Oh no, you
registered with
don't
the
need
NIS,
right.
NHT, just the same.
All right. Companies office probably need to look into the TCC for business name as well, because there are some banks that require TCC to
But
open an account.
that's a different thing, because that the TCCs with the company. Remember that they can't owe any taxes because it's a new entity. The
Or
TCC
the
is
individual. Okay.
individual, right, right. A new
So
entity
that's
just
why you have
started.
to do
Oh, yes,
the
don't
checks.
can't do anything yet.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Yes.
Right. So yes, that's one of the big things about it, because before then you would have to register your company, then make your way to the NIS office, to NHT, all over before you get to the tax office with all of those documents to
To
get your TCC,
register.
because you'd have to get the NIS for the company, your NHT number for the company, and all of that before you make your way there. So with the online, this super form, you get all of
Mhm.
that. Yes. For the just to let you know though, the for the business name, remember you're the individual that's registering the business, doing business as, so it's your TRN. But
Mhm.
for a
It's just a
company,
branch, right?
right, the company is as a unique tax registration number, and
And I think
for
partnerships also,
partnership,
and partnerships, right?
right,
Companies and partnerships, right?
because of the multiple
Proprietors,
partners, right, and it's for ease of monitoring, because
right?
when you get to the tax registration number, as the name suggests, is for the tax relationship. So all of those nice numbers that you see on your certificate when you get it from the company's office, it means
Mm.
that you have established relationship with all of those entities, which means that you
Mm-hmm.
have a responsibility to remain compliant with all of those entities. So we need to understand what that
That's correct.
compliance process really means, what you need to do, when, how, and how much.
Yes, and when it's required for, and what you need to do for each, at each step of the way for each one of those entities, because it doesn't look the same.
That's right. And that
Compliance
is
with the company's office doesn't look the same as compliance with any other entities.
not at all. Not at all. And that is why we are having this virtual hand holding and taking it through these phases. So the next stop will be with the Tax Administration Department and the NHD to guide you as to what to do after you have registered your business name or your company to ensure that you're set up. Their system is a little more digitized, so you get those fancy setups and
You
all of
don't
that.
have to goof us like that,
No,
Winsome.
I'm not. I'm just encouraging you, gently
Remember that you remember that
encouraging.
you remember that we're an executive agency, and so anything that we do is coming out of our pockets. So
All
it
right.
take a little longer for
Right.
the shorter pockets than the longer pockets.
Yes. Yes, but the nature of business is that if you simplify the process, you get more
Yeah.
people.
Yeah, we know that. We
Yes, which is why we are seeking to support you in with the Serenity Resource Connector to ensure
Mhm.
that more persons understand the process. Because a lot of what is happening is because people really do not understand the process. It's not that some don't want to be compliant, they just don't know.
Know how.
And
Right.
so we are guiding them in terms of knowing so that they're able to fulfill their obligations so that the process can move up a bit faster so that we can enjoy some of the perks of the convenience of doing the online, right,
And we're
especially for
grateful for the
those in the
assistance.
diaspora.
We're grateful for the assistance.
It's always a pleasure, always a pleasure. All right. Are there any more questions? We are coming to the end of this episode. We have gone through a lot. So if you joined us late, remember you can always do the recap on YouTube, or you can Google Serenity Resource Connector. All the episodes are there. So you can see the different episodes and choose which one you want to watch. And you can pause and you can go back and check to see whatever you have missed. We talked about the legal age for registering a business, and that even those below the age of 18 can get into business, just not as a business name, but as a company, and what the process entails, what is required to register your business or your company, the responsibilities of your secretary, your directors, your shareholders, what to do if you change anything relating to your business, the nature of your business name, and the different branches that you can set up so you can do, because there's this term being branded about multi-potentialite. So you're doing advisory in this setting, you're doing uh, healthcare in one avenue. There are different ways where you can protect your business and continue to build and remain compliant to the process for filing, and that the relationship with the company's office is separate from your relationship with the other entities. And we'll be bringing those entities in the upcoming week so you can see and understand the process as to how to get compliant, remain compliant, so that you can protect your business, your investment, and build your legacy. All right. And in the end, build brand Jamaica. It's been a pleasure serving you on this episode, another episode of the Serenity Resource Connector. We go live each Thursday at 3 p.m. and we will be having conversations next week, all things being equal, with the Tax Administration Department as well as the National Housing Trust, where we're looking at, they were on before, but then they were talking about those who are just going into the working world. Now we're going to be focusing on the business side, what to do once you've registered your business and how to get compliant and remain compliant, and to guide you through some of the little things that you need to pay attention to in terms of your expenses and things of that nature. Looking forward to serving you again right here, same time next week. Thank you so much for joining. For those who are watching this rebroadcast, thank you for tuning into the Serenity Resource Connector, where we continue our public education program to empower our Jamaicans locally and in the diaspora. Thank you again. I'm Winsome. And we had Yolande Fender joining us today from the Companies Office of Jamaica. Thank you so much, Yolande, to you and your team for accepting the invitation.
Thank you very much for having me, Winsome, and you have an awesome day now.
You likewise. All
All right, thank
right.
you. Okay.
Okay.